Hey guys, welcome to Sky World. The world just got a hint of a tantalizing but possibly even more dangerous future without Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Western stakes in the Ukraine war rose significantly as a result. A mutinous weekend that saw mercenary chief Yevgeny Prigozhin flagrantly mock the Kremlin before aborting his march on Moscow evoked Russia's blood-soaked history of revolutions and coups. Meanwhile, efforts by the White House and its foreign allies to find out exactly what was happening underlined the volatile nature of a war that could rewrite the map of Europe and modern history. Ultimately, a civil war that seemed about to burst out was averted, at least for now. The Kremlin strongman seemed to blink at a military confrontation with Prigozhin's Wagner Group fighters, in an act that might preserve his grip on power. But Prigozhin's defiance, and the retreat by Putin, who accused him of treason but then agreed to a deal to let him apparently escape to exile in Belarus hours later, punched the deepest holes in the Russian president's authority in a generation in power. There's now no doubt that the war Putin unleashed to wipe Ukraine off the map poses an existential threat to his political survival. The rest of the world must now deal with the implications. This is not a 24-hour blip. It's like Prigozhin is the person who looked behind the screen at The Wizard of Oz and saw the great and terrible Oz was just this little frightened man. Former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine John Herbst told CNN's Christiane Amanpour. Putin has been diminished for all time by this affair. Schisms in Moscow and between the government and Prigozhin's Wagner Group, the only Russian fighting force that has enjoyed much recent battlefield success, might also now conjure an opening for Ukraine, which wants breakthroughs against Moscow's already demoralized and poorly led troops in its new counteroffensive. This would be good news for the West, which has bankrolled and armed the country's fight for its life. And there's no doubt that NATO leaders would love to see Putin gone, since there's no sign he will end the war by pulling his troops out of Ukraine. For a time, it appeared that a teetering autocrat, Russia's military and rival militia chiefs might end up in a civil war for control of a nation with a vast nuclear arsenal. Such instability and internal strife in Russia would send geopolitical shockwaves across the globe. The West truly doesn't have a side in the internal strife that erupted this weekend. This was a showdown between Prigozhin, whose men are accused of brutal human rights abuses in Ukraine, Syria and Africa, and Putin, who has revived World War II-style horror in Europe, who flouted international law by invading a sovereign neighbor and who faces an arrest warrant for alleged war crimes. Prigozhin also has been no friend to the US. He has admitted to interfering in American elections and pledged to do so again. Statements by Western leaders that this was an internal Russian matter reflected a desire to deny Putin a pretext to renew his claims that he's a victim of a Western plot to overthrow him and suppress Russia's dignity as a major power and to trim its geopolitical sphere of influence. CNN's Kevin Liptak reported that in telephone conversations with the leaders of France, Britain and Germany, Biden stressed the need to keep the temperature low and to allow whatever was happening in Russia to play out in keeping with his mantra to prevent World War III. And while it's possible a crack in the Putin regime could presage an eventual collapse that might remove one of Washington's major foreign policy challenges, a new Cold War-style standoff with Russia, no one in Washington is betting on it. I don't think we want a country that spans 11 time zones and includes republics in the Russian Federation of many different ethnic and sectarian groupings to come apart at the seams, retired General David Petraeus said on CNN's State of the Union. Is this the beginning of the end of Putin? We don't know. Whoever follows him, if that is the case, will he be even more dictatorial, which is what we feared might be the case if Prigozhin may have been successful? Could there actually be a pragmatic leader who steps in and realizes what a catastrophic error this whole Ukraine endeavor has been and realize that they need to somehow get a more rational approach to Europe and to the West? Asked Petraeus, a former CIA director. Many unknowns.